Welcome everybody, what a group. Yeah. So let's get started. And just to let you guys know the format, I'm going to ask our panelists some questions, but I want you guys to get involved too, and I'm sure you have questions. We have an incredible wealth of knowledge and experience here, so we're going to run through a few and then we'll send it out to you guys, and feel free to ask questions, okay? So please don't be shy. The first question I had, and we'll send it over to Lyn, and we've talked before, and we were talking outside, and I wanted to know, what were the one or two things that you wish you'd known going in before starting your career in motorsports?
Well, since that was a long time ago, that will never leave me, is that my first race car was a Ford Pinto. And in SCCA, and my very first race after driver school, I ended up driving it into a lake. And the car totally submerged, and fortunately I obviously didn't drown, but it was the beginning. And the thing that made me, kind of blew my mind away, was that real people drove race cars. At the time of going to the Indy 500 or going to a big race, like seeing Shirley Muldowney race in drag racing, it was like I thought they were all superhumans, and when I did see that there were people that were real people, normal folks like us, that enabled me to go out and buy that Ford Pinto, because it was an eligible race car, and I couldn't afford to have a race car and a street car, so it was my street car. And I put numbers on the side of it, I put a roll bar in, a 5-point seatbelt, a 5-pound fire extinguisher, which is required for all race cars, not just Pintos. And and then I started the journey, and so there's nothing, I don't know, I can't imagine there was, if people had told me how hard it was going to be, maybe, but I knew it was going to be hard, so I don't know.
Would that have dissuaded you if they told you how hard it was going to be?
No, because I knew, I mean, when you put the car in the lake and you have to drive that car to work the next day, it doesn't get much harder than that. It doesn't get any more embarrassing than that, you know. I mean, I lived up to the total, women driver thing. I mean, it was awful, and so and I remember standing next to a couple of other people. The entertainment of the evening was to go out and watch the divers pull the Pinto out. And I, of course, changed clothes by then and had, shorts and t-shirt on, drinking a beer like everybody else. And the guy next to me goes, "So who's driving that car?" I said, "I don't know." So, it's just, I don't know. There's really, I'm sorry, there just isn't anything that I could say, oh, if I'd known that. Yeah. It's a journey. It's a journey. You can't know it all. You're going to learn every day, that stuff you didn't know. I mean, I could tell you every day there's things that I said, God, I wished I'd known that, but it was about business or it was about mechanical stuff. I wish I knew about more engine. I mean, I'm still wishing I knew more, but it wouldn't have changed anything. Yeah. It's a journey. So
what about you, Jessi?
There's
what
no
do you
magic,
Yeah.
I wish I would have known that it was okay for girls to race. That was probably the biggest thing. I didn't actually start racing professionally until way later in my life, because I didn't feel like I ever had the opportunity to ever drive. It didn't matter if I had my own car, my own truck, and I was actually doing well and I was racing. I never got that opportunity to really step up. And I feel like we have to fight a little bit more. We have to prove ourselves twice as much, which is crazy to me because the car doesn't know if we're a male or a female. So if I had known that it was okay for girls to get behind the driver, in the driver's seat of a car, I probably would have started at a way, way earlier age, and my skill sets would be completely different by now. But I think that's the most number one thing, is if I knew that girls could race, then I totally would have done it way sooner.
Yeah, and Lyn, you and I were talking about that earlier, that the optics, I think, are very important.
If you can see it, you can be it.
Exactly.
And now, I mean, if there's a young girl out there that doesn't know they can do it now, then they're blind. Yeah.
Come see us afterwards. Jennifer, what about you? Let's go to you.
So I think my thing was when I was getting into motorsports and I'd moved to North Carolina from California, a lot of people, I would meet them and I would say, hey, I'm here and I want to be in racing, and trying to network. And they would offer for me to come and tour their shop. So I had offers to come and tour. I met an engine builder from Hendrick Motorsports, and he was like, yeah, come, I'll give you a tour, I got an offer from Roush Fenway, and I got an offer from someone at Joe Gibbs Racing. Well, I only took someone up on the one offer, and that's at Roush Fenway. And then I went to work for Roush Yates, and now they won't let me in at Hendrick and Gibbs, right? So I never got the opportunity to go and see what life would be like at those shops. And not that I don't want to change anything about the decisions I made, but I'd like to see what they do differently, because that could help me in my current job. So I think my big lesson is when someone says they want to help you and they want to give you an opportunity, do it, follow up. Don't think that, oh, they're just having pity or they're just saying that. And if they are just saying that, call their bluff and definitely take advantage when someone makes an offer like that.
Yeah. Jeanette?
Right on with the opportunities. Like some opportunities, they're once in a lifetime. Don't let them pass you by. You know, do your research, but then, you know, some opportunities it's just, you know, maybe you pass on them or not. But I think one of the things that I wish I would have realized earlier, and I think everybody, whether it's in motorsports racing or just life in general, like there are really good people out there that are very genuine, that, you know, lead with their heart, that really are trying to make a difference and help you. But at the same time, there's people out there that are not. And I think you need to, you know, just be aware that people aren't always who they say they are and don't always do what they intend to do. So just, you know, maybe exercise caution, but, you know, just I just wish I would have, you know, do certain things like that, I guess.
So I'm curious, and I want to ask Jessi this because you mentioned, you know, if you had known earlier, you would have, you know, maybe started
Yeah,
sooner.
because there was no such thing as social media when I started driving. You know, like it's what we can do now by spreading the word and with television and social media and what we're doing and getting more followers and all that kind of stuff. It's so much easier to share. But none of that was there. And I grew up in small town South Dakota. Like, how the heck was I supposed to know that it was? You know, it wasn't like my parents never said that I couldn't do something, but I just didn't know that it was okay to do it, if that makes any sense.
So when did you realize that it was okay?
Probably, I was in my high school years for sure. I mean, I didn't really know anything different. Like I was always out in the garage. I was always working on the cars. I was always pretending driving. We could, you know, legally drive at the age of 14 in the state of South Dakota because it's a farming state. So I was actually driving at a very early age. But I think it's when I got my first fast car, which was a Plymouth Laser, nothing much to really brag about. But it was faster than my tractor, that's for sure. And it was one of those things that it was like once I realized what a car could actually do, aside from just getting me to point A to point B, and that I could go fast and I could put the pedal to the metal and I could start swerving inside out of cars. And I'll admit, like I was illegally street racing because I didn't know that I could go to the track. I didn't even know there was a track, kind of a deal, you know. So it's kind of it was the actual act of just I really figured it out on my own. And really, I was born with it. It naturally came with me, and then as the years went on, I mean, I ended up going to school. I got a degree in custom automotive fabrication, of course, because I wanted to have a better vehicle dynamic understanding. Because I wanted to be a better driver. I wanted to prove to the boys that I knew what I was doing. And then I ended up years later. I mean, even when I was hosting Extreme 4x4, it was like they never even wanted me to drive the trucks because they thought that I was going to break them and I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm like, I grew up off-roading. This is what I know, you know. And I was like, my first time that I remember off-roading, I was 4 years old and I was actually driving and my dad was off in La La Land and I drove down in a ditch and he was like, wow. And he gets back up and he goes, see that road? And I said, yeah. And he goes, stay on it. And it's probably the best advice that he ever gave me, you know? Like, I didn't know driving had to stay on a road when I'm 4 years old. I just thought I was driving. But when he told me to stay on the road, it was probably like not only just the best advice in driving that I ever got for, but the best advice in life. Like when I see my path, I stay on it. Like I don't veer from it, you know? But when I started hosting a show that I still host today, is called The List, 1001 Car Things to Do Before You Die. That's where I started going to a lot of driver schools. So I'm trained in pretty much every single form of driving that you can possibly think of because of that television show. And that gave me an opportunity to really enhance my skills and get certain car control in all sorts of different forms and fashion. And I think that's what really set the tone as far as, wow, I am a driver. Like, I'm a professional driver. I get paid to drive, and it's really awesome. So I think, and it's steps. I mean, I can tell you every time that something new came up and something else came up, but I think it was definitely in my high school years when I finally got a car that would go faster than my tractor or my, you know, I think my mom's first car was a Chevy Celebrity kind of a deal, you know, like, so, yeah.
What about you, Lynn? I know you put a car in the lake, but when
You know, it was funny because you mentioned, you know, she's a professional driver and she's getting paid, and that was one of the things we kind of, you know, had as a preliminary question about becoming a professional. It was a necessity for me. I mean, I think I raced for about 9 years on my own. I was in the consumer electronics manufacturers rep. I was a business person before I was a driver. I didn't start racing until I was 27. And so, and then I had an auto parts company, and so that made sense because I could write off, if I ever made a profit in the company, I could write it off for going to the races. So I raced on my own money for like 7 years. And then I wanted a faster car, because when you start winning, then you want to go up to the next level. And so none of it would ever said, I'm going to be a professional race car driver. I just said, I want to keep racing, and I want to race faster cars, and I want to race better cars, and I want to be in bigger races. To do that, I have to be a professional, meaning that I have to get money, sponsorship. So it wasn't like me getting paid, it was like I needed to find money so that I could keep racing. And so it was always it was a business. But I didn't think of it as I'm going to be paid to race. It was how am I going to generate money so that I can actually keep racing? And so it's always been a necessity issue as opposed to a strategy, you know. And because I came from a business background before I raced, I realized that to me, and I tell our young drivers that I work with, once you receive anything, it isn't just a check, but once you receive anything in exchange, it's a business proposition. So if you get free product, if you get free entry fees, if you get whatever you to help you race, now you have to give something in returns. It's a business proposition. And so, and I understood that going on. So then my big turning point was getting Ford Motor Company as a sponsor. And then I was a professional race car driver, but all of the money I was getting from Ford was still going into preparing the race car, you know, and into the car for a while. And then I finally figured out, okay, I have to start paying Lyn, and I was able to then generate a whole business around that. And that Ford sponsorship, I mean, it wasn't like this was a Ford's idea. I bugged them for 3 years and sent letters, and every time I would race, I mean, I literally drove them crazy, and I'm convinced that they've signed me because they said, this woman is driving us crazy, and the only way we're going to control it is if we hire her. She'll leave us alone and do what we tell her to do. And so, and I think that's another thing that a lot of racers build their resume, and it's important they do that. I mean, you have to win. You have to either win, or you have to show that who you beat. You could finish third, but if you beat somebody who is a former champion in that category of racing, then it's accomplishing something. But once you get into doing this professionally or thinking about it as a profession, or getting sponsorship, it's no longer about you, it's about them. You've got to figure out what you can deliver to them to enable you to get where you want to go. And I think of it as no different than when you're going to get a job and you have your bio, your resume, and you have all the different degrees that you have. But if you just sit there and say, well, because I have this degree and I have this degree and I've done this, it's not about somebody's going to say, well, you're going to out-degree somebody else who's competing for that job. You've got to sit down and say, what can you do for that company? And they're going to ask you that. What can you do for me? What can you do? How can you help me build my business? And so it's a business proposition, and I was fortunate, I think, to be a business person. I used to go to trade shows before I ever went to the SEMA show, and I went to the PRI show. You know, trade shows, you got to work. I mean, I mean, it's here to see friends and to kind of network, but it's also, you got to have a plan. And so, you know, I think that it just evolved out of necessity as opposed to ego saying, oh, I want to be a professional race car driver. You know, I'm not even sure I am. You know, I know that I started racing for fun, and I'm still racing for fun. Because it's fun, you know. I mean, I do it because I want to do it, not because I want to get paid to do it. But it takes money to do it, so let's figure it out.
Exactly. So speaking of being a professional and starting a business, Jeanette, I want to ask you about the story behind Chix and how it came to be, and where you started and how you brought it to where it is and what you're doing over there. I think it's a neat story.
Thank you, thank you. So it's funny, Chix, I was 17, which was pretty much 15 years ago, almost. Breaks my heart. But I was sitting on the porch, and I was actually, at the time, you know, finishing at-home high school. I started college early, taking an automotive school. And just trying to do some extra credits. And at that time, I was also working at like a mom and pop garage in Chicago. Most people there didn't speak English, and I started working there because I got a car behind my father's back, and I thought I was 16 and I knew everything. And So how are you going to maintain it? So, you know, if it was broke, I had to fix it because we couldn't afford any other way. So I started working at a garage, and I remember just sitting on this porch, and I think it was one of my defining moments. Like, you know, there's something more out there. There's something just, I'm not content in life. There's something out there. I want to do better, you know. And so my whole plan was that I wanted to open up an all-girl garage. And I was going to call it Car Chix. And it was just going to be like the coolest thing ever. We're going to have all women working on cars, you know, having the lifts, maybe even have an all-girl, you know, car wash. And so I didn't have any money at 17 to do that. So I bought the domain for like $12. And I planned on doing something with it in the future. And so I held onto the domain, and I got a break into drag racing. I volunteered for the Real Street Drag program at Great Lakes Dragway, which is really funny because it was a program to get kids off the street, stop street racing, and come to the racetrack. And the funniest part about it is the guy that ran the program was actually featured on the Street Outlaws not too long ago. So I started volunteering for him, and a really bad storm came through, and so I remember running into the bar, and I was kind of talking trash to this old guy there about his car. And it turned out that he owned the drag strip, and he offered me a job. So started working there. So I finally found an opportunity, like, let's make the website live. Let's make this a website. And it started off as a forum for me and a couple of the local gals that race to pretty much share our racing pictures and talk to each other and probably talk about boys. And the first week that we made it live, it crashed because so many people were going to the website. So about 3 or 4 days, no sleep, on Mountain Dew, we redid the website. And it went from being a forum to a website where we could advertise and promote other women in motorsports and share stories and connect with people, and to make people know that it's okay to race, it's okay to be a woman in motorsports, it's okay to be interested in cars, it's okay to get dirty and get grease under your nails. You're not alone. And that's kind of what it transformed into, but it was never meant to be what it is today. And so there was something out there, there was something further and better in life, and it was good to not just be content sitting on my porch doing things I probably wasn't supposed to be doing. So.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So one of the things, Jennifer, you mentioned, and I'm sorry, did you want to?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
That was a great story.
Jennifer mentioned, I love how you termed it, that somebody gives you an opportunity or says that they want to help you, you call their bluff. Mm-hmm. And I think that the other half of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is sort of proving that you can do it. You know, you can call but you got to make sure that you've got the goods to back it up. How do you feel as far as being a woman in a male-dominated? Do you feel that the standards are the same? Do you feel like you have to? Are they higher, lower? How do you view that approach?
So that's always a tough one. The woman question is always hard for me because my mentality is to not draw attention to it, right? So I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to do a good job, and I'm going to come to the meetings and I'm going to do what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm not going to draw attention to the fact that I'm female. But the reality is that it is different, and you are you represent a smaller percentage. So like my company, for example, it's somewhere in the 5 to 10% of the company is female, and maybe like 3 or 4 women actually touch the engines. So what I see it as, it's a benefit and a disadvantage. So the benefit side is you stand out. And so when you do something good, you get a lot of positive attention. But the alternative to that is you stand out. And that when you do something wrong or you make a mistake, you get a lot more attention than maybe one of the males might have. So I try to work it to my benefit, and when I do make a mistake, I correct it, and I make, and whatever scene is created from that, I make it into a positive experience for everyone so that they can see humility, they can see my work ethic, that they can see that I want to work together as a team. So yeah, it is different, but you can work it to your advantage and make it a positive experience for everyone. The other thing is, like, a lot of people ask, like, oh, well, like, like you must love working with other women. So that's one of the funniest things, because some of my biggest challenges have been working with other women. So my call to other women is support each other, because why fight each other when like you have a lot of uphill battles on your like against everything else. So and some of my biggest proponents in the industry have been men who they never thought of me as different or inferior. They were like, she's intelligent and smart and she's got the resume, so we hire her, and there's no questions. It never came up in my interview. It never came up in my first few, in all the years, it's never come up internally. It's actually been people coming outside the company coming in and go, oh, there's a female, like that's a thing. So, so anyway, so that's kind of my long-winded answer to that.
Sure. Jessi, I see you nodding.
She's right. It's complicated to answer this because it's obviously typically a male-dominated industry. So, like I said, I didn't know that I could even get into it when I was younger. So had I known that at an earlier age, I think it would have been a different story. And I think that's one of our biggest goals right now, is to reach them at a younger age and to kind of change that perspective that we are welcome here. We have just as good as skills. We have just as good attention to detail and ability to drive and ability to work with other people. And believe it or not, we actually like to come to work and get our job done. So, it's complicated because we are women. We become a distraction. The wives and the girlfriends have a really hard time with us. Productivity goes down, even though we can come in and wear a full overall suit and a hat, and it doesn't matter what we look like. It's just a different dynamic when you all of a sudden throw a girl into the mix. So it can be complicated, and I know from a different perspective too, is like when it comes out into the public. I mean, I have millions and millions of followers, and it gets to be really complicated because if I do make one mistake, I try to do my best to fix it, but it's all of a sudden like, oh, it's because you're a girl, or you only got that sponsorship because you're a girl, or you only got that job because you're a girl. Like I'm better than you, I'm this than you, and it's like, well, that's not, I actually am good at what I do. I got that sponsorship because I'm a good driver and because I can offer that company something that I don't know if you know what you can offer them. So it's taking everything into full perspective because, like I said earlier, the car doesn't know if I'm a guy or a girl at all. It's never gonna know that, ever. And maybe it might last longer, but other than that. So yeah, it is complicated, but I wouldn't trade it for the world because there are a lot of benefits that come out of being a woman in the industry as well. We do get a little bit more advantage when we have those people that are the proponents that are like, wow, you are exactly what this industry needs, and they give you that chance and they kind of help you grow and give you some wings. So it goes twofold, but I just keep my head down and do what I love to do, and I try not to let any of that affect me.
Yeah. No, you mentioned the importance of sponsorship, and I wanted to ask Lyn this because I know that you've had experiences, in your time with getting sponsors and working with them, and I wanted to know sort of how can you communicate the advantages working with sponsors? I'm a female in a male-dominated sport, and what's how do you convey those benefits, and what's important to know?
Well, before I answer that, I'm going to go back a little bit to what we were just talking about because I think
Sure.
there's a lot of messaging here that's important. It's a competitive world and it's a competitive sport. Be better and be smarter. I mean, be hungrier. I mean, that's what I've looked at, and I've really worked harder. I've been better at what I've done than the next person. And even when I'm in the race car, it's like I want that piece of asphalt more than that other competitor, even though they might be a better driver than I am. So and I hear that, and I just think that's so important.
Yeah.
As far as the sponsorship, it's the hardest part of the sport. I mean, to me, it's the hardest part. It's one of the luxuries I now feel that I can still wear my business hat, but I don't have to I'm not chasing money to be able to continue racing. I don't get to race as often, but it's the tools are a lot better now with all of the electronic media and everything. I mean, I used to have to get subscriptions to Advertising Age and all these different publications and go to the library and study even to find out what the executive name was, when I was trying to go after a company, where now it's all on the computer. But I mean, you have to be able to understand what values you have as a person. Everybody is unique. The only thing we have in common is that we are women. But I'm different than Jessi. I'm different than, we're different people, and you all are different, and you all have an authentic sort of person as to who you are, and that has a value. But figure out what that is. Figure out genuinely who you are, and don't try to be something that you're not. If you aren't sexy, then don't try to be sexy. If you're not smart, then don't try to, just figure out who you are first. Stay true to that, and then figure out what organizations, what companies, whether it's within motorsports or even outside of motorsports, that are aligned with who you are.
Yeah.
And then work it. I mean, really work hard at then finding those companies, and no is only no from that person on that day. I have gone back to the same companies, to the same people, and sometimes the person that said no, they're gone, a month later, and particularly now there's so much movement in companies, and you can go back to the same company. Timing is, you don't know the timing, you don't know what's going on in their world, and so don't ever accept no forever. And so it's being creative, it's being strategic in the way you think, and it's being relentless. I mean, when I decided I was going to try to go to race an IndyCar, it was after I got to finally drive one. It was in 1988. I didn't get to Indy until 1992. That's 4 years of chasing sponsorship. JCPenney is who I got as a sponsor. It was the 151st company that I approached over those 4 years. I was not going to quit. And the only bad part of that, or the really bad part, was that I was 4 years older, and I was getting old. And so, I still hold the record for being the oldest rookie in the history of the Indy 500, and went on to race 7 Indy 500s after that in 9 years. Don't do the math. So, and I was talking to somebody out here earlier. I mean, okay, I was old, and so not only was I a woman, not only was I older than when I was a rookie, most drivers at that age were retiring. And so what the hell was I wasn't even supposed to be there in the eyes of many people. But I did go on and run 15 IndyCar races and 7 Indy 500s, I've said, and I kept getting older every year. But I kept getting better. So if you know in your heart what you can do, you know in your heart what and you don't deserve. It's like people think they deserve a sponsor. You don't deserve, because you are passionate and you really want to do something in the motorsports industry. That doesn't mean that you're entitled or somebody deserves to pay for you to play, or to pay for you to be able to do something. So you got to bring value, you got to know who you are, and you have to find alignments for that, and never give up.
Oh, that's a great message. So at this point, I promised you guys that we'd give an opportunity for questions. Does anybody have any questions right now? Do you want to raise your hand and fire one at the panelists? In the back there?
Just to anyone up there, how does the racing, being a woman in racing, affect your home life?
The question is about affecting home lives.
That's a good one.
Have that on your list.
I did, that was.
No, dear.
I have less time to make sandwiches. No.
No, you go ahead.
I'll give an honest answer. No, sorry, that wasn't really my answer. It's racing and motorsports. It has consumed my life, but it has consumed it for the better. I really, what else would I be doing with my time? And yeah, sometimes it gets crazy, sometimes it gets hectic. I mean, in the summer, like every weekend, my fiance and I prior to the car crash, we would be at different racetracks, or if we're not racing with him, we're doing different car Chix events, we're doing ladies only drag races, we're doing the trade shows, and I still work a regular job, and I actually run 2 businesses, and yes, it's crazy, but I love the chaos. Mm-hmm. It makes me feel good. It gives me a reason to get up every morning and be like, wow, I wouldn't want it any other way. Mm-hmm. And my sandwiches still taste amazing, right, honey?
Jennifer, yeah.
Yeah, so as I went through my career, as I was growing, like in college and in my job in California, and when I went back to school, I had relationships at every stage of that. And the relationships ended because that person I was dating couldn't make it to the next transition, right? Like they didn't understand that I was still more. When I got out of college, my boyfriend at the time didn't understand that I still wanted to do more, that there was something else for me out there, and he was ready to settle down and start family, so that ended. And so now where I am, I look back and I've made it to North Carolina, and I've met someone there, and that relationship works because he gets it, right? So he understands that I'm not going to be home at a reasonable hour, especially in January and February before we go to Daytona. It's just not, I might not even come home. I may still be at a shop overnight, like it happens, right? So like he gets it. He's been in motorsports his whole life. He's moved on to be a teacher now, an instructor at NASCAR Technical Institute, and so he understands what I'm going through now because he lived it. And so I think like you'll find the relationships in your life that work because they understand you. And if the relationships don't work and you don't understand each other, that's okay. They worked for a part of your life, right? So every relationship, every friendship I've had, every friendship that has kind of closed, that was great for that time in my life. And you know, I finally met someone that I feel like we can go the distance. So when I decide that I want to go international racing, like I think he's going to be there. I know he's going to be there, right? Or else we wouldn't be engaged. We wouldn't be getting married. So I think that it's really a challenge, of course, in any relationship, that work-life balance. I think everybody has that in their life. And as a woman, I think I've just had to find that person that understood, that got it. And when you find that person, you hold on to them because you know, he doesn't get upset when I come home at 9 p.m. and you know, he has to make me dinner, or or maybe when I don't come home and he doesn't get to see me for a few days. So like we're good at working all that out. So
He makes you dinner?
yeah, that's nice. Yeah, it's great.
All right, dinner with Jennifer sounds.
Yeah, come on over.
We're all coming over.
I'll let him know.
What do you think, Jessi?
It's complicated, you know, because it's a passion. I'm driven to go out and race and to be better and to change the world and to change the perspective of women in motorsports, and that's what my whole life is wrapped around. And it gets to be difficult because they love the idea of it. They love that I'm a racer and I can work on cars and I like the adventure and that I'm fast and that I'm driven. But when it comes to the reality of it, then all of a sudden I have a voice and opinion, and they realize that I don't stop working and that this is my life, and they have a hard time keeping up with that. So for me it's really, really complicated. I'm sure there's going to be really great magical rainbows and all that kind of stuff at some point in time, but right now this is my life. So I'm more devoted to my work and my racing than I am to anything else.
What do you think, Lynn?
I can't add a lot. I mean, you make sacrifices. You do have to make sacrifices, and it's hard to find the other side making sacrifices. So it is complicated. I don't have any magic to offer to it. Just it's back to being true to yourself and to figure it out. It ain't easy.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah. And there's somebody else out there who's learned that they got to make dinner.
Right.
That's wasn't what I was trying to say, but you know.
I know we had I saw another question. Yes, sir.
I own a racetrack in California. I'm a former race car driver, and I produce a television show that airs on Mac TV now. We focus on 10 to 14-year-olds in full cycle late moments to showcase talent. Half of our drivers, we qualify our drivers, half of the drivers are females, and I get a lot of media attention, West Coast media. One of the questions I get all the time, and I'm curious of your opinion, especially you, Lynn, is can girls win at the highest level in our sport? And my answer to it is there's not enough girls racing. So if it takes 50,000 male drivers to produce the Kevin Harvick or Jimmy Johnson, we simply don't have enough girls racing. Mathematically, we need more. Actually, Courtney finished on our TV show on the podium, one of the most talented young ladies I've seen so far. We just need more females racing. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I'll take that first since you challenged me with it. I totally agree in that sense that there's this huge mass of guys. I mean, for every Tony Stewart or Kevin Harvick, as you've mentioned, there's multiples. What the number is, we don't know, but there's hundreds, if not thousands. Yeah, there's a lot of fabulous race car drivers who never get the opportunity, never get to that very top level, and we don't have that depth of numbers. At the same time, I got to play the other side of it. Does it take that to be able to get to that, to take and make it to the top? I don't think so. I don't think we need equally as many women to be able to get to that level, for a female to get to that level. If we do, it ain't going to happen in our lifetime, because it's just numbers aren't really growing that fast. My experience, particularly the last 25 years of working with young drivers and having over 250 drivers come through our program, is that what concerns me is that I've seen some really great talent is that they just don't have the drive and the desire, you know, and not only that, I think there's a big challenge, and please, I'm not meaning to offend the guys out there, but a lot of the women that young girls particularly, not women, but young girls that I see, they start racing when they're so young, which is the way everybody is, 5, 6, 7 years old. They're like at Courtney, they're 15 years old and they've been racing for over 10 years. I mean, I can't even fathom that, to be honest, to be that age. Girls have so many other opportunities of things they can do. They can decide they're going to go play another sport, or they just seem to have a lot of opportunities and a lot of skills to be able to do other things. Where guys, many times, that's the only thing they can do. I mean, they get pigeonholed. I'm sorry, but I just, you know, they just don't really have a lot of other options, you know, and so they hang in there. They go through all of the stuff that we got to go through, where the gals get discouraged, I think, or they kind of decide, well, maybe I'll go do something else. It drives me crazy because it's like, you know, you have the ability, you know. Because every year is not going to be the perfect year. You're not going to have a perfect season every year. You've got to be able to just hang in there and continue to grow. And so, you know, I'm not letting some of them go that have actually shown those skills, as long as they've got that incredible, intense passion that I know that they'll stick it out. So if we wait until we have the numbers, I worry that then it's not going to happen. And I don't think my goal has never been to have 50% of the drivers out there women, you know, for equality and all that. It's just, if you have the talent, you have the desire, you have the ability, you have the determination, then stick it out so that you can make it to the top. Because yes, a female can win the monster championship, whatever they're going to call it now, can win the Indy 500. There will be a bottle of milk with lipstick on it, you know. That's all possible because the car doesn't know the difference, like you said. But you got to have so much more in your package, and I just hope it does happen. But so keep those 10 to 14-year-olds, and you know, find and help. I think we need as an industry, if you. And again, I'm not talking about entitlement, but if you see extraordinary talent, get behind it. You know, if there's people out here that own companies, take a chance. You know, and it's not like you're giving somebody something that you wouldn't give to somebody else. But if you see some extraordinary talent, help them. You know, if they've proven that they have the stuff, you know, they have the skills, then help them. Help them.
Does anybody want to? Jen, go for it.
I mean, I have young girls come up to me all the time asking for advice and this and that. Like the question about, can a woman succeed in brake? I mean, you're sitting next to like two of the most accomplished women in drag racing right now. Carrie Ann Beebe, she's the fastest woman. I think it's 3:15s or 2:35s in drag radial. Dina Parisi was 2015 IHRA Pro Mod champion. I mean, so absolutely women can have leading first place roles in championships in motorsports. I think, you know, over the years, like more and more women are becoming involved in motorsports. It's becoming more acceptable. It's no more taboo. It's becoming, hey, you can do this, just go out there and get it. So I think by continuing to encourage and, you know, breaking the barriers and breaking the ceiling, that we're going to continue to see more women grow in the sport. You know, and I agree. I don't see, you know, the 50-50. It's not everyone's, you know, cup of tea, if you will. But I think it's only going to continue to grow and continue to prosper. But touching base on something that we were talking about earlier about, I like to call it the magnifying glass, okay? So a guy goes out there, he crashes his car, it's just like, oh man, bro, don't worry, I got that part in my garage, come on by, it's all right. A girl goes out there and does it, doesn't matter how accomplished she is, how many championships she's won, how long she's been driving that car. She shouldn't be driving the car because she's a woman, she should have lifted, she should have did this, the car's too fast for her, whatever it is. So women are always underneath the magnifying glass, and I mean, I can speak to this. I mean, I just did a PR for a woman that this happened to. I mean, she just got this amazing new car, and like, you know, here's this PR, it's amazing. She's a Wally winner, she's a champion, but they were very quickly to share the video crashing, the video of her crashing her car. The articles are everywhere, but about her having a new car, it's not a big deal. But now if I was a man, it'd be a whole nother story. I mean, that's how I feel personally. But yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be a question if, I'm a girl, can I win a championship? Absolutely. You can do anything you want to do. Don't shatter dreams. Let's encourage dreams. Let's provide the resources to, build people up. So, sorry.
I mean, all of us only have our personal experiences. I'm shocked, actually, because I have never, when I screwed up, even, the Pinto doesn't count, but.
I love that story.
I haven't proven anything other than, but every time I've had bad things happen in a racetrack, I've had people help me. Part of this, I think, and I don't know who you're talking about, okay, as far as what that happened, is you get what you give. And if you've got a chip on your shoulder, if you've got an attitude about the fact that I'm a woman, then, or I don't know, if you just, you know what I'm saying? If you've got a little bit of an attitude, you're going to get that back. And if you're genuine about your passion and you help other people when they got a problem, they're going to be there to help you. I went to Le Mans with the most disastrous program. I didn't even put the race suit on, on race day because I knew this car was a disaster. And the brake pedal fell off my first lap. It didn't just have no brakes. The brake pedal fell off, and it was a disaster. And next thing I know, we had crew guys from other teams that knew about the car. They were all rallying to try to help us put this car together. Yeah. So somehow you're going to build. Everybody out there builds their reputation and their resume of who they are. And sometimes maybe we're not aware of it, that we've put barriers in front of us. Our own internal thoughts are emulated. You're sending those out to the universe and you're sending them out to other people. And if you've got barriers and you've got attitudes, they're going to come back. And so, I think just be careful with that, because I've had nothing but people trying to help me. Now, when I screwed up, it's like, like you said, if the guy goes out and screws up on the track, he's a wanker. And if the gal goes out and screws up, then it's like, she's a gal, But if you've got a problem, I've just had nothing but racers come and help me. I hope that would continue, that we're past that,
No, and I totally agree with that. And I think most people in this room could agree, the people that you meet racing and in motorsports, they become family, sometimes more than family, but at the same time, I think one of the blessings and cursings of 2016 is things like, technology, social media. As soon as that video hits the internet, or as soon as that picture hits the internet, everyone has an opinion, including people that probably should have a license to be on the keyboard, I guess.
Yeah, we crashed in Baja last year, and if anybody saw it, we crashed pretty hard. We drove right into a giant crack, and the ass end of the truck went over tea kettle, and it was bad. But nobody knows that we took second place in that race.
They know about the crash.
They know about the crash.
Right.
And it was because girls shouldn't have been driving, they shouldn't have been out there on their own, and it didn't matter. They don't think about the fact that we pulled the truck out, we fixed it, we got back on course, and we finished second. But nobody knows that we finished second because it was all about the crash. So,
it's part of the culture of the sport.
It's part of the culture.
They glorify the crash.
It definitely is. It definitely is. But then you read. Get over it. Exactly. And that's what we do. I'm not done racing. I'm going out to prove more and more and more. It's women like us that don't give up and continue to push on and show to our younger generations that it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay for girls to be in the industry. It's okay, and we're going to succeed because we are driven and we're passionate, and we're not going to stop here.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep going. Yes, question.
Excuse me for, I'm so enthralled with the information. I'm going to have a slight introduction. First of all, happy season's greetings to everyone. My name is Dr. Bradley, Cecilia Bradley, and I believe we're trying to represent as best as I can, not from experience, just from an academic standpoint. I was able to get my dissertation with the title of this seminar, which is Women in Male-Dominated Motorsports, and I was able to publish it in the Sports Journal. I would not have been able to do this if I hadn't met Lyn St. James, and several women participated in my study. It was about 230 women. And I did not know that the industry with women in motorsports had that many women at that time. And I just wanted to say that I'm interested in extending my research, and I want to ask, what is the next relevant main issue that you feel is very important in this industry as a woman in the sport that needs to be continued in terms of researching. My theory was proven that women are risk takers, and that was really how I was able to get my defense, etc. But I would not have been able to do it had I not, as Lyn St. James mentioned, gone to the sports shows, meet, network, and of course do my research. And I would like to perhaps maybe continue doing my research. I am now still in the sports industry as a fitness professional with Body Parts Fitness. But I'm also an adjunct member where I got my dissertation, which is at Argosy in Chicago. And the theory is, and thank you for the Women in Motorsports, that women are indeed risk takers. And secondly, I want to ask the women panel, do you feel that you receive your skills that you have today in terms of being a driver, if you will, in motorsports from men or from women? So that's my second question, and just to reiterate my first question, I'm possibly going to be continuing my research, and I'd like to hear from you from an academic standpoint. What would you like to have as the study with women in motorsports in terms of a relevant issue that probably needs to be researched and represented in academia?
Let's hear, let's hear from Sure, thank you, Dr. Brandon.
Well,
it's a lot to unpack there. Who wants to jump in?
Well, I can start on the second question. You asked, where do we get our skills from? So I've gotten my skills from all kinds of different people.
First, you kind of remember first, did you get your skills from men helping you? Because I remember I heard you say, you know, hey, women are sometimes conflicting and men seem to be more, I guess to say, maybe accepting, and that's not true in all cases. So I'm just wondering, do you remember when you started in the industry?
Right.
Yeah,
Where was your
I think she's getting there. Yeah.
So a lot of my formal education, I had male teachers, I had a lot of male students, there were some female students. So a lot of my technical skills I gained from males. But all of my skills about how to deal with others, how to work well with others, came from outstanding women in my life and males in my life. So I really feel like I got it from both. But in the technical side, in the teaching side, I mean, it's a male-dominated industry, so you're going to see that represented in a lot of different areas. So the more women that come into the industry, the more women teachers we're going to have, and the more people you're going to gain your skills from. I think also in the academia side, my experience in my bachelor's degree for engineering, I had a higher percentage of female instructors. In the technical vocational side, I had a lower percentage of female instructors. I think I had one in my entire 2-year education. So, but in my bachelor's in 4 years, I had 2 to 3 female instructors throughout that time. So I'm not really sure why that is, but I just observed, that's my observation, so.
Yeah. Well, I think there was a lot there, and I'm sure that they'd be happy to talk to you afterwards. We're running a little bit light on time, but there's one thing that I did want to ask, and kind of for everybody, but give me some examples. What type of support is out there? What are the resources that are available for women who want to up their program, get involved in the, whichever level we're talking about? Jeanette, you want to start, and then I'd love to hear from all of you.
Sure. Well, depending on what aspect you want to get into, I know when I was looking into starting my own business, of course, I'm like a computer nerd, so I'm always Googling stuff and looking stuff up, like things that don't even make sense at 3 o'clock in the morning, but that's a whole other story. But one of the things that I found really helpful were resources like the smallbusinessassociation.org. It's a free website. You go on there, it's full of thousands and thousands of resources. You can also apply for different kinds of grants and business loans. It gives you seriously a breakdown step by step how to start your own business, what to look for, what different kind of areas. There's also, like Chix. One of the things we're working on is offering resources, anything from how to change your tire in high heels, maybe not high heels, but to change your oil, how to, do a press release, promote yourself, the importance of things like that. So Google is your friend. Just, double check the resource, make sure it's not fake news, I guess.
Yeah. Good one. Jennifer.
I'd say for one, in this room, there's probably a lot of resources. So for me, it's been a lot of individuals. I observe other people's careers and the skills that they gained and how they got to where they are and said, okay, well, I don't have that skill. I'm going to go find a way to get it. So for me, coming out of engineering school, I was like, I don't have enough hands-on. I want to know how the parts go together. My dad saw a commercial for NASCAR Tech, and so I went to NASCAR Tech because that's where I found out that I could get those skills. So I think one is constantly being honest with yourself and saying, what skills do I not have and where can I get them from, to kind of build, like Lynn had stated, your resume, build your skill set. Because when I got to that interview with Roush Yates Engines, my resume was exactly what they were looking for. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been honest with myself and gotten those skills as I went. So for one, individuals, two, education, and then I had a third one, but I can't remember it. So if you don't remember it, you'll come back to me. So.
Yeah. As she said, there's probably a lot of resources in here. You know, find a good mentor. I think any successful person has at least one, if not 5, really good mentors that they can reach out to and they can talk to and ask questions and get to the bottom of things. But get involved is super important. There's things like PRI or SEMA that are much more than just a trade show. You know, they have avenues that you can plug into, you can connect, you can network, you can become a part of something and they'll help you drive your goals and your missions. And 3 is probably just never, ever, ever give up. If this is something that you truly want to know about, you've got to fill those gaps, you've got to become better at what you want to do, and just never stop. Because, I mean, I've been told no a gajillion times, and, you know, we've lost a gajillion times, but it's not to a point where it's like, well, racing isn't for me, or this whole automotive place, you know, screw all these guys. No, it's literally what I love, and it's my entire world, and I don't know what I would do without it. And so therefore, because I am so passionate and devoted, I've never given up. Yeah, there's times that I want to, and there's times I'm like, what am I doing? But it doesn't mean that I'm going to stop, because it's what literally drives me. So yeah, never, ever, ever give up.
Lynn, you want to take it home?
Well, I would recommend developing your own personal board of advisors or board of directors. You know, you need attorney, you need accountant information, you need resources, mentors. I mean, you don't have to label them, by the way, but if you have, build your team and your network, and your family is probably that original network that you're going to have. But I love moms and dads, because moms and dads are what enabled you to have this, you know, opportunity and to have a sport, or to even, whether it's driving or in the industry. But they don't know everything, and they're not always, what they know is not always exactly right either. I mean, they want the best for you, and they're going to give everything they can, but you've got to go outside that realm. And sometimes I've actually, early on particularly, I've tried to get 2 advisors in every category, so to speak, because you'll get 2, eventually it'll probably narrow down to 1, because there is no one person that knows everything about legal, or everything about accounting, or everything about racing, or everything about whatever series you're trying to run in. So try to, you know, bounce a little bit off of 2 different, get 2 pieces of a different advice, and over time, you'll either burn somebody out, but then you've already got the next person that you can work with, or you've just, you know, you can do that, not that you're trying to play one against the other, but it's just, you know, don't rely on just one, because sometimes they go on to something else. But build your own personal board of directors, or own personal board of advisors, and learn, you know, I think somebody else pointed this out earlier about, you know, not every piece of advice that somebody tells you, as you walk around the show, you could ask people and you're going to get 5 different answers from 5 different people, and it doesn't mean that somebody was lying or somebody, it's just everybody comes with their own personal experience, and you've got to kind of flush that out as to what applies to you. So one of the things I've always tried to do with my driver development program, which I'm not doing anymore now, but I still have a list of people that I've been very, very supportive of letting other people know who to trust, because it's hard. Because not everybody wants you to succeed. Everybody's interested in watching you succeed, but not everybody always wants you to succeed, unfortunately. So, so build that board of advisors of people that you trust and that really are there to support you and to see you succeed, and it'll help tremendously.
Yeah, gosh, I think that's great stuff. And just to let everybody know too, and we've got resources obviously here. Well, okay, one last question. Go ahead.
This isn't actually a question. I just have to mention, you guys all talked about networking and building a board of advisors. One big way to do that is through the SEMA Business Women's Network. And you you go to SEMA.org, and there's a tab for the councils, and check it out, because that's a great way to build your network and to meet with Jennifer is part of the select committee. We have Sherry Colleen here that's part of the select committee, and I'm the chair-elect. So I would love to have you join the SBN and network with all of us. Thank you.
Absolutely. So it took the words out of my mouth. There's some good resources here. Take advantage of them. Well, unfortunately, it's time to go. It's 9 o'clock.
Showtime.
Yeah, showtime. But I want to thank you guys for being a fantastic audience. I want to thank our panelists, Lynn, Jessi, Jennifer, and Jeanette. You guys were fantastic. If you have any questions, I'm sure they don't mind sticking around maybe for a couple of minutes. And once again, thank you so much. Enjoy the show.